Welcome to NTD Good Morning.
Here are today's top stories. The U.S. government is on track for a shutdown tonight at midnight after a White House meeting failed to get Democrats on board. We'll have the latest updates for you.
President Trump will attend a gathering of top generals later this morning alongside Secretary of War Pete Hegseth. He's expected to deliver remarks there. We'll be covering it for you live here on NTD.
Reactions coming in to President Trump's peace plan for Gaza. What other countries, Israeli officials, and hostage families are saying as they wait for a response from Hamas terrorists.
Louisiana Governor Jeff Landry calls for federal help to tackle the violent crime in his state, while Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker is pushing back against federal agents.
The Caribbean braces for back-to-back hurricanes with dangerous flooding and rip currents. Warnings are in effect across the U.S. East Coast.
And a conservative activist in New York is violently attacked on camera, but the charges were dropped after DA Alvin Bragg's office missed a filing deadline. NTD News spoke with Savannah Craven Antio about her case.
And tap into your purpose and find your fast track to success. Whatever your endeavor, let authenticity be your guiding light. That's the message from our guest who had a transformation of his own. We'll have that for you.
This is NTD Good Morning, live from our global headquarters in New York City. Here are Stephanie Cox and Carrie Dunst.
Good morning. Thanks for being with us.
Today's Tuesday, September 30th. You're watching NTD Good Morning. In today's top news, congressional Democrats are not backing down on their health care demands, raising the possibility of a government shutdown beginning midnight tonight. And we'll have that. Melina, good morning. Good to see you. Congressional leaders met at the White House yesterday. What came out of that meeting?
Hi, good morning, Steph. It is great to be back with you this morning. So what came out of that meeting is more of the same, Steph, that we've seen over the past month. Democrats continuing to demand Republicans to include in that short-term funding bill a provision to extend Obamacare subsidies. They say this is the only way Republicans will get their votes. Listen to Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer following yesterday's meeting.
We have very large differences on health care and on their ability to undo whatever budget we agree to through rescissions and through impoundment, as well as pocket rescissions. And I think for the first time, the president heard our objections and heard why we needed a bipartisan bill. Their bill has not one iota of Democratic input. That is never how we've done this before.
Now, Republicans, for their part, Steph, say this discussion on health care should be part of a broader budget negotiations, not part of their simple 7-week extension of government fundings that is meant to allow them to continue work on those regular funding bills for 2026 and allow them more room to debate these kind of decisions. Here's the vice president following yesterday's meeting. Listen.
If they want to talk about how to fix American health care policy, let's do it. The Speaker would love to do it. The Senate Majority Leader would love to do it. Let's work on it together. But let's do it in the context of an open government that's providing essential services to the American people. That's all that we're proposing to do. And the fact that they refuse to do that shows how unreasonable their position is. I think we're headed to a shutdown because the Democrats won't do the right thing. I hope they change their mind, but we're going to see.
Now, remember, Steph, the Republican-controlled House has already passed that short-term funding bill to keep the lights on through November, although that failed in the Senate, failing to get the Democrat support needed. Republicans say there's nothing to negotiate on their short-term funding bill because it simply meant to extend funding levels that Democrats and Republicans already agreed to last year. So basically, to answer your question in a nutshell, the White House meeting yesterday did little to nothing to prevent the possibility of a shutdown at midnight tonight.
Certainly still looks like some flames flying in most directions. What happens to the federal workforce if the government shuts down?
So I think a lot of people think that the entire government will shut down. They'll stop getting mail. They'll stop receiving Social Security checks. But actually, it's a partial shutdown where some essential services will be kept, like the mail service. So people will continue to get mail. Social Security checks will continue to go out. FBI and CIA officials will continue to work, among others. Though those who are still going to work won't get paid stuff until Congress acts. Then those who are furloughed during the time that the government is shut down will actually get payback for the time that they were out due to a law that was signed in 2019. But this time, consequences will be more lasting than previous government shutdowns. That's because the Trump administration staff has directed federal agencies to use this government shutdown as an opportunity to get a better understanding of how they can reduce the federal workforce permanently. This would be to further the administration's plans of slashing the overall size of the federal workforce. Steph?
Plenty to watch here, and we'll be speaking to you later today, I'm sure. Thank you so much for those updates, Melina. President Trump unveiled his 20-point plan to end the Gaza war while meeting with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu yesterday at the White House.
NTD's Washington correspondent Mari Otsu has more.
Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and President Trump were here in the state dining room, and President Trump is announcing his 20-point plan to end the war in Gaza. So the plan lays out an immediate ceasefire and a phased withdrawal of Israeli troops. And if and when Hamas accepts the deal, Hamas must then release all hostages, both living and dead, within 72 hours. Gaza will then have a temporary transitional government overseen and supervised by a so-called Board of Peace, which will be headed by President Trump himself. And here's the president expressing his hope for Palestine after the war comes to an end. Watch.
And I challenge the Palestinians to take responsibility for their destiny, because that's what we're giving them. We're giving them responsibility for their destiny, fully condemn and prohibit terrorism and earn their way to a brighter future. They don't want the life that they've had. They've had a rough life with Hamas.
President Trump's proposal also states that once all the hostages are released, Israel will then release 1,700 Gazans who were detained after the October 7 attacks. And any Hamas members who commit to a peaceful coexistence and agree to lay down their weapons will be granted amnesty. President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu, who says he accepts the deal, are calling on Hamas to also accept it, but are prepared for this if Hamas rejects it. Watch.
Hamas rejects the deal, which is always possible. They're the only one left. Everyone else has accepted it. But I have a feeling that we're going to have a positive answer. But if not, as you know, Bibi, you'd have our full backing to do what you would have to do.
But if Hamas rejects your plan, Mr. President, or if they supposedly accept it and then basically do everything to counter it, then Israel will finish the job by itself.
This is coming just after President Trump hosted a trilateral phone call with Prime Minister Netanyahu and Prime Minister Al-Thani of Qatar, a key intermediary with Hamas. In this call, Netanyahu apologized for unintentionally killing a Qatari serviceman during Israel's missile strike against Hamas targets in Doha. He also promised that Israel will not attack Qatar again in the future.
Reactions are pouring in from around the world after President Trump unveiled his Gaza peace plan. Arab states, Palestinians, and hostage families are responding to the proposal. Let's take a look.
8 Arab and Muslim countries have welcomed President Trump's announcement of a proposal to end the war in Gaza, including Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and Turkey. But while supportive of the effort, they stopped short of fully endorsing the U.S. plan. The Palestinian Authority, which governs the West Bank, also signaled its willingness to engage. It pledged to carry out reforms required by the plan, including new elections and ending payments to families of terrorists. Israel's prime minister, however, expressed doubt about Palestinian leadership in its current state.
I appreciate your firm position that the PA could have no role whatsoever in Gaza without undergoing a radical and genuine transformation. It won't come as a surprise to you that the vast majority of Israelis have no faith that the PA Leopard will change its spots.
Families of hostages taken by the Hamas terrorist group also reacted with cautious optimism. Many gathered in Tel Aviv to watch Trump's announcement on their phones.
We were happy to hear that Trump saw us, that he heard us calling for ending this war and bringing all the hostages, the lives and the dead, home.
I am more optimistic, although I am still a bit afraid to be so optimistic.
The official social media account of the hostages and missing families called the present moment a historic turning point. Activists said the plan could finally bring an end to the bloody war.
It looks like finally, we have a deal to end the war, the bloody war in Gaza, and bring all our people back home. This is very, very good news.
But not everyone is welcoming the plan. The Palestinian Islamic Jihad group, an ally of Hamas, criticized the plan. The terrorist group's chief said he considered Trump and Netanyahu's announcement a recipe to blow up the region. Still, Western leaders like French President Emmanuel Macron and Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni express optimism and urge Hamas to engage. Trump's 20-point plan calls for a ceasefire, prisoner exchanges, and a transitional governing body for Gaza. Israel's ambassador to the UN told CNN they're waiting for an answer now from Hamas.
We will be patient. We are skeptical when it comes to Hamas, but I think today Hamas is isolated.
Trump's special envoy Steve Witkoff told Fox News on Monday he thinks this proposal is different from previous ones.
We have so much widespread support from all of the Gulf Coast Arab countries. We have widespread support from the Europeans.
But with Hamas silent so far, the fate of the proposal and of the hostages remains uncertain.
Another legal victory for President Trump. YouTube has agreed to pay $24.5 million to settle a lawsuit filed by the president.
The case was brought over the suspension of Trump's account after the January 6th Capitol breach in 2021.
Under the settlement, $22 million will go to a nonprofit dedicated to helping build the White House State Ballroom.
The rest will be paid to other plaintiffs, including the American Conservative Union. After Meta and X, YouTube is now the last social media firm to settle a lawsuit with President Trump.
And President Trump has announced a new round of tariffs.
Trump yesterday signed a proclamation. He's imposing new duties on imported timber, lumber, as well as furniture.
Starting October 14th, new U.S. tariffs will hit the wood products sector, 10% on lumber and 25% on furniture, with sharper increases coming next year.
In January 2026, duties on upholstered wood products will climb to 30%, kitchen cabinets and vanities 50%, targeting imports from countries without U.S. trade deals.
The White House says the move will strengthen supply chains, boost industrial resilience, and create high-quality jobs. President Trump added that the tariffs would spur investment, drive innovation, and increase domestic production, especially for industries vital to national defense, noting the U.S. military spends over $10 billion a year on construction projects.
Officials argue that this policy is needed to stop losing market share to Chinese furniture imports, which the Commerce Department has deemed a national security threat. But critics in the furniture industry warn that the tariffs, they could disrupt supply chains, raise prices for American consumers.
Okay, but up ahead, the Caribbean braces for back-to-back hurricanes with dangerous flooding and rip currents. Warnings are in effect along the U.S. East Coast.
And a tale of two states between Louisiana and Illinois. Louisiana Governor Jeff Landry calls for federal help to tackle violent crime. Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker is pushing back. He does not want federal agents in Illinois. We're going to bring you that and more. Stay with us.
Welcome back to NTD Good Morning. Severe weather is posing a double threat to the Caribbean and the U.S. East Coast.
Tropical storm Imelda gaining strength, and the National Hurricane Center predicts it's going to become a hurricane today.
Forecasters warn of rip currents, dangerous surf, beach erosion, and flooding along the coast. Cuba's prime minister said today that 2 people died after Imelda struck the island.
Meanwhile, Hurricane Humberto is churning as major hurricane in the Atlantic, though forecasters say it will not reach land, fortunately.
Forecasters also say the 2 systems could start rotating around each other as they get closer, leading to what's known as Fujiwara effect.
North and South Carolina both issued states of emergency ahead of the storm. South Carolina lifted its emergency warning yesterday, though.
And we'll keep you updated there. Now to the church shooting in Michigan. As we learn more about the suspect, authorities are looking into possible motives after 4 people were killed in that attack.
White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt said on Fox News that FBI Director Kash Patel described the suspect as someone who, quote, hated people of the Mormon faith. She added that search warrants are being executed at the suspect's home and that investigators are working to determine why he would commit such an act of evil. Here's NTD's Arlene Richards with more.
Several investigators on Monday said they are focused on finding out what motivated a former Marine to allegedly ram a pickup truck into a church and open fire. Authorities say the suspect, identified as Thomas Jacob Sanford, age 40, plowed through the front door and began shooting with a semi-automatic rifle. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in Michigan was in the middle of a crowded service at the time of the shooting. According to an official from the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, the attacker apparently used gasoline to start a fire, setting the church ablaze. 4 people were killed and 8 were injured, 2 of whom are still in critical condition. At a news conference Monday, the acting head of the FBI Detroit field office said they were working together with all levels of government, local, state, and federal.
The FBI is investigating this as an act of targeted violence, and we are continuing to work to determine a motive. In the past 24 hours, our investigative squads and specialty teams have been out all night, exhausting leads, some of which have been coming in from the public via tips.
He said his office is getting assistance from other field offices across the country. According to the local police chief, they are still clearing out the church, but everyone is now accounted for. Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer also attended the press conference.
As I said, I'm here as the governor, but I'm also here as a fellow Michigander whose heart is breaking by another mass shooting in a place that is supposed to be defined by togetherness.
Whitmer said this is one of the many shootings that have occurred in recent years, including at schools, stores, parades, festivals, and houses of worship. She said she had spoken with President Trump, who offered his condolences. The attack is the second on an American church in little over a month. Arlene Richards, NTD News.
And we'll keep you updated on that tragedy also. Next, Louisiana says it needs help. Louisiana Governor Jeff Landry is asking Washington for assistance in tackling a violent crime surge across the state. NTD's Daniel Monahan reports on that, and Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker pushing back on any federal agents in his state.
Louisiana Governor Jeff Landry announced he has formally asked for federal assistance to activate up to 1,000 Louisiana National Guard members, speaking on Fox News.
Who would not want help in combating criminals on your streets? Who does not want their communities and their cities to be safe?
Landry said there were ongoing public safety concerns regarding high crime rates throughout the state. The Republican governor says police officers are overwhelmed by the number of homicides, carjackings, and gang violence.
President Trump has amassed the best cabinet of public servants and folks who really want to fight crime, like General Bondi, Secretary Noem, FBI Director Kash Patel. These folks know how to keep Americans safe.
The National Guard soldiers are expected to supplement law enforcement in high crime areas, provide logistical and communication support, and secure critical infrastructure.
The troops are happy to come. Remember, the National Guard are citizen soldiers. They are members. They are the fabric of our communities. They're our neighbors. They're our sons. They're our daughters.
In 2024, Louisiana recorded 520 violent crimes and nearly 2,300 property crimes per 100,000 residents, rates nearly 45% and 30% higher than the national averages. Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker is singing a different tune. Pritzker on Monday described Homeland Security's request for 100 troops to the state to back up ICE agents in Chicago as sowing fear, intimidation, and division among Americans. Pritzker said, quote, "With one voice, we are telling this unwarranted and unconstitutional occupation to get out of Chicago." Tensions flared last Friday outside an ICE processing facility in Broadville, Illinois. More than 200 protesters gathered near the gate in front of the facility, while dozens more crowded another entrance, chanting, "Arrest ICE, shoot ICE." Federal agents made at least 17 arrests and confiscated a gun from one rioter who was apprehended at the scene. And the Justice Department is suing Minnesota. It accuses the state and several local governments of using sanctuary policies that block immigration enforcement. Attorney General Pam Bondi says the policies defy federal law and put residents at risk. Similar lawsuits have recently been filed against New York, Los Angeles, and Boston. Bondi wrote on X Monday that the rule of law will prevail. The Attorney General says the DOJ is deploying agents to protect ICE facilities, arrest violent agitators on the spot, and bring the strongest federal charges possible. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
The Trump administration is moving to block Harvard University from receiving federal funding, citing alleged civil rights violations. HHS says Harvard failed to address anti-Semitic harassment on campus following last year's Hamas terror attack on Israel, violating Title VI of the Civil Rights Act. HHS has referred the university for formal administrative proceedings, which could result in the loss of funding or government-wide blocks on federal contracts. Officials say this step ensures taxpayer dollars are protected and compliance is enforced. A federal judge ruled earlier this year that the Trump administration had violated the First Amendment. The court said Harvard was already taking steps to address concerns and protect free speech rights on campus.
The superintendent of Iowa's largest school district has been stripped of his license after federal immigration agents arrested him. The Iowa Board of Educational Examiners says Ian Roberts no longer has a legal presence in the United States. Immigration officials say Roberts, a native of Guyana, entered on a student visa in 1999 and has been under a removal order since last year. Authorities say Roberts fled a traffic stop before being arrested with a loaded handgun, a knife, and cash in his district-issued vehicle. School officials said they had no knowledge of his immigration status, noting he had submitted documents verifying his eligibility to work. The school board voted yesterday to place Roberts on unpaid leave. And just in this morning, prosecutors are urging a New York federal judge to sentence Sean Combs to over 11 years in prison for his prostitution-related conviction. They say one accuser still lives in fear of his release.
Defense attorneys are asking for a sentence of no more than 14 months behind bars, with sentencing set for Friday. Combs has been jailed since July for arranging male prostitutes to travel to hotels for sexual encounters with his girlfriends.
Record-breaking cocaine bus numbers are hitting cartels. A Florida-based multi-agency task force seized or disrupted 1 million pounds of cocaine in fiscal year 2025, enough to fill 42 dump trucks and nearly 400 million lethal doses. The Joint Interagency Task Force South says the seizure has denied cartels and narco-terrorists more than $11 billion in revenue. The agency includes the U.S. Coast Guard and works with partner nations across the Caribbean and Central America. Officials say the drug seizure amounts don't include separate strikes on alleged Venezuelan narco-terrorists. The Trump administration has vowed to step up militarily in the Caribbean, targeting well-financed criminal networks that smuggle drugs, arms, and cash toward the U.S.
We're going to jump to a quick break. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Welcome back.
If you're just joining us now, here are some of today's top headlines.
With just hours left before the government shutdown deadline tonight, lawmakers remain deadlocked. Republicans are pushing a clean, continuing resolution to extend current funding for 7 weeks, giving Congress time to pass the full slate of appropriations bills. They say the plan already has bipartisan backing in the Senate. But Democrats are holding firm, refusing to support any bill that doesn't extend Affordable Care Act subsidies. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer warned the shutdown would happen, blaming the Republicans refusing to cooperate. If the shutdown happens, it will be a partial shutdown. Essential services like mail will be kept. In the event of a government shutdown, non-essential personnel are furloughed without pay, but will receive back pay when funding is restored. Service members would be required to work without pay during the shutdown. Social Security checks will continue to be issued. President Trump this morning commented on the possible shutdown. Take a look.
Mr. President, if there is a shutdown, how many federal workers do you plan to lay off?
Well, we may do a lot, and that's only because of the Democrats. And as you know, they want to be able to take care of people that have come into our country illegally, and no system can handle that. And so we're totally opposed on that. But we can't take it. We just can't do it. I'd love to do everybody. I'd love to do the whole world. But our country can't handle people that come into our country illegally. And they want to give them full health care benefits. They want to open the wall again. Can you believe it? I can't even believe it. They want to open the wall. They haven't taken away boys playing in women's sports. They haven't done that. Men playing in women's sports. It's like they don't change. They lost an election in a landslide, and they don't change.
And global reactions to President Trump's Gaza peace plan are pouring in. Arab and Muslim nations welcome the effort, but stop short of fully endorsing it. The Palestinian Authority signaled it is ready to engage. Families of hostages called the moment historic, even as they remain cautious about the final outcome. Western leaders are urging Hamas terrorists to accept this proposal.
Louisiana is asking Washington for help with tackling violent crime. Governor Jeff Landry there has requested up to 1,000 National Guard members to support police in high crime areas. In contrast, Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker is rejecting federal troops in Chicago, calling it an unconstitutional occupation. And a violent attack on a pro-life activist in New York caught on video. But the charges are dropped after DA Alvin Bragg's office failed to file the paper on time.
NTD's Daniel Monahan spoke with Savannah Craven-Anto about the case.
Savannah Craven-Anto first got involved in the pro-life movement when she was in college.
I was going to a musical theater school here in New York and came across some videos about abortion, and I felt a call really from God to speak out against this injustice that detrimentally affects the Black community and minority communities.
She started working with a pro-life organization, but soon branched out on her own and founded the YouTube channel Her Patriot Voice. Anto was brutally assaulted in the streets of Harlem in April while conducting interviews about Planned Parenthood.
So we're asking people's opinion today on Planned Parenthood. Are you familiar with them? Brianna Rivers comes up, and she was very positive in the beginning. Obviously, I assumed we weren't going to agree. I mean, most people I come across in the street don't agree with me, and that's okay. That's why
the conversation started to get a bit heated.
You don't get to kill the baby just because their dad didn't want them. You can. Should we kill the kids in foster care? Why not?
Rivers violently assaulted her soon after. Rivers was charged with second-degree assault by the office of DA Alvin Bragg, who prosecuted President Trump. But the court dismissed the case in July after Bragg's office missed the deadline for turning over evidence. The DA's office confirmed that it dropped the ball, calling it an unacceptable error, adding that it is taking immediate internal steps in light of the botched case.
These district attorneys, anyone involved in law enforcement, they're supposed to promise one thing, and that is justice. Politics, religion, these types of things should not get involved. Personal opinions, that should not matter. What happened to me was completely illegal. It was completely unprovoked. And I was just exercising my First Amendment right.
Adding insult to injury, Anto says Rivers has been boasting about the assault.
I have 6 months of evidence of my attacker bragging, making jokes, and wishing that she could hit me again. I mean, she was liking Instagram comments saying you should have hit that girl harder. You know, oh, she effed around and she found out.
Anto says she's very grateful that God has used this opportunity for good, that it has finally got her voice out there to stand up for babies and for Christianity.
But it's also come with a lot of backlash. You know, thousands and thousands of DMs, comments, emails of people telling me that I deserved it, that I deserved to die. And
the pro-life activist says her case sends two messages.
And that we can't depend on our justice system to bring justice. I mean, we can't depend on them to actually do what they're supposed to do, what they're there for us to do. And so the other message I think that it sends, hopefully with the fact that I have not stopped speaking out, that I've only continued to go out there and share my story, is that I hope that they don't back down. I hope that this doesn't make them feel like they have to be silent and not speak out for what they believe in.
Anto also commented on the recent arrest of 75-year-old Rose Doherty for holding a sign outside an abortion clinic.
Well, I wasn't approaching anyone. I wasn't handing out any leaflets. I wasn't doing anything that, in my mind, contravenes your buffer zone.
In Scotland, buffer zones are enforced within 200 meters of every hospital, forbidding so-called influencing of anyone seeking to access abortion services. Anto bemoans what she sees as the unequal application of justice, where career criminals are let off the hook again and again, while police lock up grandmas for praying, bringing up the case of Irina Zaruska's alleged killer.
People like her killer are let out of jail multiple times, but you're going to arrest and try to prosecute a 75-year-old woman for standing outside of an abortion facility and praying? That's the world that we're living in. And again, I keep repeating this. I do believe it's a spiritual battle. It's an attack on faith. It's an attack on the fact that they know that we're making a difference just with our presence.
And coming up, lawmakers are in North Carolina to tackle violent crime and repeat offenders. Victims' families are sharing their experiences and demanding accountability. We'll have that story and much more coming up. Welcome back to NTD. Good morning. In Charlotte, North Carolina, yesterday, congressional lawmakers held a hearing on violent crime and pretrial release policies.
Victims' families shared their stories, highlighting failures in the justice system. NTD's Christina Corona has more, and a warning: this report includes content that some viewers may find disturbing.
Washington, D.C. lawmakers were in Charlotte, North Carolina on Monday for a Victims of Violent Crime hearing tackling solutions to rising violence. The session follows the deadly stabbing of Ukrainian refugee Irina Zarutska on the city's light rail in August. Congressman Jeff Vandrew said a magistrate judge let Irina's killer walk free even after his own mother called him dangerous.
The magistrate judge said, well, this is the 14th time he committed a crime. But, I think it'll be his last because he signed a handwritten note that he's going to be good. And now a young woman, and there's other stories, it's not the only story, but this young, beautiful woman with her entire future in front of her, working 3 jobs, living the American dream, believing in America, she's gone.
Family members of crime victims testified, including Mia Alderman, the grandmother of Mary Collins, who was murdered in 2020 when she was only 20 years old.
She was stabbed over 130 times. Mary was then wrapped in plastic and hidden inside a mattress.
She says Mary's case has still not gone to trial. She said the pain is made worse by the way the justice system has dealt with the suspects in Mary's murder.
2 of them were released on bond, as if their crimes were minor, as if they stole a candy bar or maybe broke in a car or something.
Steve Federico, father of 22-year-old Logan Federico, also testified. His daughter was fatally shot during a home burglary in May by a repeat offender.
She was 5'3". She weighed 115 pounds. Bang! Dead. Gone. Why? Because Alexander Devontae Dickey, who was arrested 39 times, 25 felonies, was on the street. He should have been in jail for over 140 years for all the crimes he committed.
Charlotte-Mecklenburg police officer Justin Campbell, who was injured while saving fellow officers during a 2024 ambush that killed 4 officers and left him with a leg that had to be amputated, also testified.
Why is it that we take people who commit these heinous crimes and we do not hold them accountable for their actions? We sit there and we try to give it a reason as a mental health issue or some other type of issues that realistically doesn't take blame.
Congressman Vandrew says safety and American values must come first and that serious, violent, repeat crimes demand strict action. Christina Corona, NTD News.
And officials say a listeria outbreak linked to recalled frozen pasta meals has caused 4 deaths and 19 hospitalizations in 15 states.
The CDC has issued a recall for ready-to-eat pasta dishes sold at Walmart and Trader Joe's.
The recalled items include market-side linguine with meatballs and Cajun-style chicken fettuccine Alfredo.
Federal officials say the contaminated pasta products were made by Nate's Fine Foods.
Albertsons Companies has also recalled several deli products that may contain listeria.
Consumers are urged to throw away or return these recalled items in thoroughly clean containers and refrigerators. All right, we have to wrap up our show now, but be sure to stay tuned for NTD News Today with Alice Tong at 10 a.m. Eastern coming up shortly.
And for round-the-clock original news coverage, you can always visit us at ntd.com or download our NTD app. Thanks for watching. I'm Stephanie Cox.
I'm Carrie Dunst. We'll see you soon.